Some of the presentations at CitizenCon this year were very interesting, sharing some of the things to come for Star Citizen. And one of those topics was all around master modes, and how developers intend to use improved systems to encourage more satisfying dogfighting for players in-game. And there are some things about the new master modes that sound great, but also some that could be hugely problematic. I'm Forrester, and in this video we'll explore that topic, at least based on the information currently available. Some of you may be aware, but this channel regularly hosts a range of Star Citizen videos ranging from guides to ship reviews, so if this kind of video sounds interesting to you, you might like to hit that subscribe button so that YouTube shows you more videos like this. In case you missed it, the session title The Need for Multiple Speeds, which I've linked in the video description, covered some changes to the flight model with the introduction of 2 master modes. Primarily, the changes are driven by Squadron 42, but are expected to translate to the Persistent Universe too. Broadly speaking, the first mode is a combat mode, where speeds are more limited, but the ship is able to maneuver and fight. The second mode is a quantum travel mode, made for covering distances quickly, but disabling the combat capabilities of the ship. For combat ships, I like the sound of the 2 modes. It encourages dogfighting and means that choice of ship matters more, with smaller ships retaining their vulnerability but not having the same ability to disengage from an unfavourable situation. It could reduce combat distances and engagement ranges and generally reduce the speed of ships in combat. Effectively, it levels the playing field a bit more, so that light fighters remain a valid choice but are not the only meta choice. It was also suggested that the changes make piloting skill more important, although anyone who has watched Avenger 1 fight using the current flight model will know that skill is a huge part of winning engagements already, so I'm less convinced by that, but so far so good. Whilst ultimately it's difficult to know too much without actually trying the new modes, there are a couple of things that are more concerning however. To escape a fight, many ships will need to go into a quantum travel mode, which disables the shields, disables the weapons, and disables the anti-missile countermeasures. Arguably, that makes sense for fighters, stopping them from disengaging and re-engaging quite so quickly to encourage dogfighting. But for cargo ships or mining ships, the ability to disengage is key to survival. These ships are likely to be highly vulnerable even to basic combat ships, as they spend most of their time in high-speed travel, and so will often be running around with no shields. Even capital ships will be much more at risk of being quickly nuked, as they are so slow that they'll often have to use fast travel to get into combat in the first place, and when they do that, even if they enter into combat mode right away, charging from 0 shields to full can take some time. There may be some mitigants to this in future patches, such as increased time to kill, which was mentioned in another panel, or the introduction of armour to help protect ships. But ultimately, for a ship like the Hull A, this feels like a very rough change. Many people will be saying that the answer is simple: put people in the turrets or hire escorts, and in high-risk places that would make sense, but that might not be the answer in itself for all instances. Firstly, if that's a requirement, it means that the combat game loop is more important than all of the others. If every cargo and mining ship in the entire game has to have an escort in order to get by definition, at least 50% of all gameplay would have to be combat focused. That might be okay in the eyes of some combat players, but for others, the idea of just flying next to a mining ship for their entire mining journey might be rather boring. Remember, a good effective escort mission is one where there's no combat at all. Or the bigger risk is that players of non-combat ships just fly around, are really vulnerable, and we end up with loads of players quitting because it's too dangerous to play a non-combat role. Which means all of the time spent developing gameplay loops for mining or running cargo was largely wasted, as we end up with a space combat universe. Again, that might work for some, but is a little off the vision for the game. Once again, it's important to caveat, until we see the changes in more detail, try them out, and ultimately see some balancing, this could just be a case of unwarranted concerns. The changes sound really positive for Squadron 42, where most of the gameplay is likely to be in combat ships. The changes also seem positive for encouraging ship-to-ship combat in general, as well as offering a new way to balance between large and small combat ships. Gone will be the days where a tiny light fighter ends up destroying an anti-fighter hammerhead corvette just by flying around it. But it sounds like further tweaks might be needed to the design plan in order to keep players flying non-combat ships, especially little solo ships like the Hull or the Prospector, which could otherwise be highly vulnerable. But what do you think? Do you agree with those concerns? Or do you think I'm just being a silly space dad and should fly my fighters instead? You can let me know in the comments, I'm sure there will be some strong views. If you enjoyed this video, you might press that like button to let me know this is the sort of video you'd like to see more of. Otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.